2024 was declared the year of Shadow. We had Shadow prominently featured in the third Sonic movie, which I reviewed, and a brand new Shadow story in Sonic Cross Shadow Generations, which I didn't play because I have no money. And a host of promotions and other merchandise. Unlike the year of Luigi, Shadow's dedicated year seems to have been a resounding success, and with any corporate success comes the desire to repeat the cycle. So, in this video, I want to explore what we might see in the year after Shadow. For this exercise, I'm going to establish some rules. Firstly, I'll leave the extended media alone. Obviously, each character will feature prominently in some movie, show, or comic arc just like with Shadow. Rather than have me plot all that out and balloon this video's length, we're just going to assume that Sega understand that the big multimedia push is part of the year of Shadow's success. We're also going to assume it's a given that there will be merchandise galore for the featured character. Where I come in is in making up a little tagline for the year, like the fearless year of Shadow, and discussing the major games a character might appear in. My rule is that each character gets 2 games, one being a modified re-release and the other a wholly original outing. This is actually a little more than Shadow has gotten, with his major game release being an expansion to the Sonic Generations re-release, but I'm assuming that the next year we want to go a little bigger, or at least have more options. It also helps to have a little extra push for the next featured character, since Shadow's successful year is due in part to being an already popular character. They even made a joke about that way back in the Sonic Boom show. With all that out of the way, let's kick off the video proper with... Okay, so I think it's been long enough that the dedicated Sonic fans already know Amy is slated to appear in the 4th Sonic movie. We all saw the mid-credits scene. This means that if any character truly is on the docket for having their own year, we're probably getting the year of Amy in 2027. I, for one, can't wait to finally have official Amy Rose dresses available in the Sega shop and plastic Pico Pico hammers in the toy aisle. Amy actually presents an interesting conundrum, as some of the things we might imagine her featuring in have already happened. Sonic Origins Plus already puts her in all of the classic Sonic games, and Superstars has also given her some attention. I could see her being a prominent feature in a Superstars follow-up, perhaps one which pairs back the characters to become a full-on Amy-focused spin-off, but I think we can do more. Sonic Cross Shadow Generations is, in part, a way to reintroduce people to Shadow's most prominent moments and traits, so for the re-release portion, I'm choosing a remaster or remake of Sonic Adventure. Though her story is short, Amy's campaign is one of her becoming more independent and understanding her own strength. A Sonic Adventure Super Deluxe release either seeks to fully remake Sonic Adventure with modern visuals, or take a more faithful porting approach by starting with the Dreamcast original instead of the somewhat maligned Deluxe port. In order to be part of the Year of Amy, the game also rectifies Amy's short campaign with a longer post-game story that allows her to play through the other levels she didn't get to visit. I always felt there was plenty of potential in Amy's unique abilities in Sonic Adventure, so having more levels to utilize that kit should help more people see my vision. In Sonic Frontiers, Amy and other characters have heart-to-hearts with Sonic about wanting to do their own thing to show that they can be brave, independent, or not shackled down by their history. It's the kind of open-ended decision that leaves plenty of room for spin-offs if Sega so choose to explore that route. For the Year of Amy, what I'd like to see is what Amy's solo adventure would look like with this goal in mind of making it on her own. The goal presents somewhat of a parallel to her original story in Sonic Adventure, so perhaps we can see her take up that original gameplay style as well. I like the idea of Amy being a traditional platformer character finding her own unique way to make it in a Sonic setting rather than her somewhat melding into being Sonic but pink. Girl Sonic is starting to become a crowded archetype, with Amy taking that role in Heroes and Dream Team, Blaze starting with that role in Rush, and Surge taking up the mantle in the comics. I think Amy's potential has always been in the abilities she uses in Sonic Adventure and the first Sonic Advance, so I'd like to see her take a traditional 3D platforming role in a way that Sonic can't. To me, she makes sense in a sandbox collection in the vein of Super Mario 64 or Super Mario Odyssey. The closest Sonic has ever gotten to that genre is Sonic 3D Blast, where Sonic roams around in more spacious zones in search of Flicky. Perhaps a stealth remake starring Amy instead of Sonic could do well, taking place in an actually 3D environment instead of faking it with pre-rendering and giving the player camera control to make finding a good perspective for platforming easier. Although, having Amy's big modern solo game be a remake of a filler Sonic title doesn't exactly give the impression that the Year of Amy is getting anywhere near the same reverence as the Year of Shadow. Maybe instead we take the core concept, Amy using her Pico Pico hammer and traditional platformer movement to collect Flicky, and set the game in a brand new world. Now it's a stealth sequel, something for longtime fans to appreciate, but it's also Amy's own unique adventure instead of a hand-me-down. We can even include a return to Flicky's Island as an unlockable extra story after the main game is completed. Amy actually presents a unique opportunity to other characters on my list, given she has both a modern and classic iteration. In addition to doubling down on the merchandise, there's plenty of opportunity to strategize the game's releases around catering to both iterations. Amy having her own Superstars-esque spin-off, especially one which pits her against Metal Sonic as a sort of pseudo-follow-up to CD, could do well for classic fans and younger players. Then, having Sonic Adventure Super Deluxe reintroduce her modern story and give her more to do would appeal to a lot of adventure and modern fans, while also serving as a transition from classic to modern as Adventure originally did. Perhaps Amy can even don her classic outfit in Sonic Adventure Super Deluxe, since Sega really like those limited edition skins. Then, to go even further, she can have her own modern platforming adventure like I outlined previously. The Year of Amy gets to show every step of her evolution. You may think that, given my rant about the girl Sonic archetype, I'm not a huge fan of Blaze, but that's not true in the slightest. Blaze is great as a character and in her archetype, given that her debut was Sonic Rush, kicking off the 2D boost style. I think she's fine to exist as an implied alternate dimension Sonic as long as other characters are allowed to forge their own gameplay identities. Blaze's re-release game is incredibly easy to nail down, as it can't be anything other than a Sonic Rush pack. Now, given that Blaze has equal billing to Sonic in Sonic Rush, and sort of equal billing in Sonic Rush Adventure, it does seem a little difficult to add an extra story to the pack just for her. This is where Colors DS can come in, as it's in a funny spot as an unofficial Sonic Rush 3. Colors DS was passed up for the remake treatment when Colors Ultimate entered the scene, so this pack can rectify that mistake. We could give Blaze equal gameplay billing to Sonic in Colors DS, since there's no real reason she couldn't use the Wisp powers, but I'd actually much prefer to see her keep her pyrokinesis through the entire journey and not have the Wisp's abilities somewhat muddy that. Instead, she can have a post-game story that remixes the Colors DS stages, going on her own solo adventure through the remnants of Eggman's Interstellar Amusement Park. Blaze having her own unique game might actually prove a little trickier. The first instinct might be to put her in a new Sonic Rush game, but if the year ends up being focused solely on 2D games of the same style, the Year of Blaze might get saddled with the perception of cheapness that guarantees other characters won't have their year afterwards. Perhaps we can avoid this simply by making the next Sonic Rush in 3D, in the vein of Unleashed and Generations, but you can now play as Blaze as well as Sonic. This could do well in its own right, especially if the level design maintains the tight focus of Unleashed and Generations as opposed to the watered-down counterpart seen in Colors and Forces. I do wonder how well the idea would be received. Blaze, I think, would work well as a holdout of the boost gameplay style, acting as a way to return to the idea after the main series has moved on to something else. But that, of course, is predicated on the series actually moving on from boost gameplay. Lost World did not become the next direction for the series, and Frontiers, while trying to forge a new open zone style, still leans heavily on the abilities inherent to boost Sonic games, especially in cyberspace. Perhaps this means the Year of Blaze will need to wait a decade or so to manifest after Sonic has managed to make Open Zone a more unique identity, or gone back to the adventure style to try and find a once-lost identity. Cream's taken a backseat for a long while, only recently reappearing in Sonic Dream Team, which I never played because even Sonic can't convince me to buy an iPhone. Her re-release could only ever be a Sonic Advance trilogy, a well-requested collection that really should have come to Switch by now. An Origins-style remake of the Sonic Advance games really is a no-brainer, especially since the larger screen real estate would fix the problems inherent to just sticking the original games in an emulator. It would also make it easier to add Cream's bonus content in the form of making her playable in the first Sonic Advance. Plus, this would let the tiny Chao Garden function across the trilogy of games rather than having separate gardens attached to Advance and Advance 2. Now for her solo game, I could see Cream use her flight capabilities and teamwork with Cheese to navigate more open-ended sandbox in search of lost Chao or animals, and this is just a rehash of my concept for Amy. Okay, so maybe she won't get to have a big solo game. Sega really don't seem to know what to do with her, hence why she gets sidelined so frequently, and the best concept I can come up with treads a lot of the same ground as the one I made for Amy. For the sake of keeping things interesting, I'm going to imagine she gets to headline a side story in whatever the big Sonic game is, or maybe just an extra story in the eventual console port of Dream Team. To compensate, I'll try to put her in something that feels a little more uniquely her own. Some of you may be yelling at your screens right now that she can and should be the face of a Chao Garden mobile game. And while, yes, that is correct, I cannot begin to tell you how much I absolutely hate that possibility. The last thing I want is for the Chao Garden to become the next big mobile game, chock full of microtransactions and predatory design. I really don't need my Chao staring at me to convince me to spend money on more pulls for animals and cores. I especially don't need Cream to tell me my Chao will be really sad if I don't spend 15 real actual dollars on limited edition fruit. I am not strong enough to resist, and I am already in a tough financial situation. Chao Garden Mobile is a guaranteed way to make me retroactively hate Chao, and I really don't want to have to rip up my Chao in Space poster. Instead, I want to return to a concept that people might not expect. The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog was a surprisingly fun and earnest visual novel wrapped in the pretext of being an April Fool's joke, and I think Cream would be a perfect headliner for a larger budget follow-up. Part Ace Attorney and part humongous entertainment, this point-and-click adventure would see Cream and Cheese team up to solve a mystery together. It initially starts out light, with Cream playing kid detective to try and find a missing animal friend, but slowly gets serious as it becomes clear that Eggy Man is involved in the plot. In the background of this story, Sonic and friends are having an adventure of their own and frequently disregard Cream's requests and deductions. Through her own problem-solving skills, and possibly with the recruitment of Charmy or even the entire Chaotix detective agency, Cream manages to get to Eggman's base before Team Sonic, dismantling his plans and comically sending Cheese to lay the smackdown right as Sonic walks in through the front door. It's lighter fare, sure, but an earnest attempt at a full-length visual novel would be a fun addition to the Sonic library, and a great way to give Cream her own unique gameplay identity. Oh look, another Miss Fox video where she talks about her favorite Sonic character. Who would have guessed? I sure hope she acts normal about Rouge the Bat in this video. If you'll allow me to indulge, while I know Rouge doesn't rank too highly in the popularity poll, she has gotten a fair bit of play recently. She still shows up in the comics, got to absolutely serve in the Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, exists as a minifigure in the LEGO sets, and got to be part of Sonic Prime. Maybe she doesn't get top billing, but she does have a place in the series and her own fan base who are definitely very normal about her. The Year of Rouge starts with a long-awaited remake of Sonic Adventure 2, her debut game. If my Year of Amy comes true, then the Year of Rouge serves as a good follow-up. Her extra story in the game follows an unspoken tradition in some Sonic games where Rouge often has some kind of side mission going on before the start of the game. She has a secret mission before the start of Shadow's story in 06, and her hunt for Eggman's secret treasure is the catalyst that kicks off Team Dark's story in Sonic Heroes. This is where Rouge's extra story takes place in the SA2 remake. Sometime after the Bio-Lizard is defeated, but before she descends into Eggman's vault, Rouge goes on a little adventure where she learns of Eggman's secret treasure and gathers information on where exactly it's supposed to be. Yes, this does mean that the bonus content is more treasure hunting levels. Save your groans because I actually like the treasure hunting stages, so you'll get no sympathy from me. Maybe y'all will stop whining once you realize you get to treasure hunt in Rouge's outfit from Heroes. This side story really is meant to be a short experience, ending right where the first Team Dark cutscene begins, and hanging on a little teaser for the Sonic Heroes remake that some of you are begging for. Now, you're probably wondering what Sonic spin-off gameplay I'm going to insist Rouge should take over. Is she going to stealthily reimagine Sonic Labyrinth? Does she headline a Sonic storybook revival based on the works of Ian Fleming? Do I dare claim her as the new face of Sonic Pinball? Well... Call me biased if you must, but I very strongly believe that the secret to a good Rouge game lies somewhere within the caverns of the Batcave. Rouge's strongest gameplay identity, to me at least, really is in her first appearance with the treasure hunting stages. Rarely do we see the combat prowess, gadgetry, and stealth action that surely comes with being a treasure hunter, spy, and thief. An Arkham-style game could seek to rectify that. Maintaining her gliding and climbing abilities would be perfect for a setting like Arkham City, and her gadgets and flashy kicking attacks would give her plenty of options for dealing with foes during combat. Having stealth sections and moments where you have to search for clues or important objects would also help to realize her spy training in an actual gameplay scenario. Imagine for a moment, we finally get to see one of Rouge's solo missions, perhaps as a directive from Gunn, or just because she knows Eggman must have some serious capital to fund his mechanical army. Rouge finds herself infiltrating an Arkham City-sized super base on a remote island. This massive complex has environmental differences in its regions because Eggman has only partially succeeded in conquering the natural landscape. There are lots of secrets and treasures to find when exploring outside of the main story, and the campaign has you journey through all the sectors of the map, taking out badniks and gathering intel on Eggman's latest scheme. Rouge has a ton of spy gadgets and weapons, some standard gun issue, and some modified from Eggman's tech, which helps her solve environmental puzzles and take out robots. When stealth and gadgets aren't enough, Rouge is more than capable of sending mechanical heads flying with her stylish kick attacks. Omega may even make a guest appearance or two, ready to burn things to the ground as soon as Rouge asks him to. I'll be honest, this would be one of those dream game scenarios for me. I would definitely be very normal about getting to play Rouge's solo outing. And since it will probably only ever be a dream, maybe someone out there can do me a huge solid and mod Rouge into Arkham City. So these are all my hypothetical years after Shadow. What do you think about my game ideas? Which Sonic character do you believe should get their very own year? Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll watch again in the next video. Also, wouldn't it be really funny if they had a year of Surge where they re-release a bunch of games that play out exactly the same except she's replaced Sonic? Like Surge Adventure, Surge CD, Surge Colors, Surge Unleashed, Surge Adventure 2, Surge Shuffle, Surge Heroes, Surge Rush, Surge Advance, Surge Labyrinth, Surge Spinball, Surge Pocket Adventure.